responsibility for something his father had done, to this cousin, and then, something that his country wasn't responsible for, but helping other neighbouring African nations.
This film has been out for quite a long time. It feels like it's been out since 2017.
It was pretty early. I was actually surprised that it was listed in the nominations.
That's
right.
I
thought it was in the year before.
Feels like, because clearly Ragnarok's a better film that came after this. Didn't it? I'm sure it did. I thought Ragnarok has come...
No, Ragnarok was before Black Panther.
Was it?
Yes. But they're all pretty much piling up on top
They
of each other.
are a bit. I'm losing track. I am losing track, I have to say. Bring on Endgame so we can put this whole sorry mess to bed.
I can't wait for Endgame.
They're all going to die.
They're not going to die. Like you said, it's two-dimensional. All the heroes have to be fine.
They don't have to be fine. No, that's not how it works, not anymore. Not after the last one. Yeah. Do you know how hard it was sitting there with my 5-year-old son and, like, Spider-Man dies and, spoiler. And all of these characters that he's, been watching the movies and fell in love with the characters and everything. And they're all just turning to dust and drifting off. And I'm just sitting there halfway through them just going... And he just started crying. And
my kids haven't seen them because they're...
Too young?
Too young.
Yeah, even though they're older than mine. What are you trying to say? You're saying I'm a bad parent.
No, we're just different parents.
We are different parents, yes. I like to teach mine early on that disappointment comes fresh and new every day.
Oh, gosh. So, was there anything you didn't like? So besides not being able to understand it, was there anything else you didn't like about Black Panther?
No, I thought it was pretty tight. It just...
Did you find you have any issues with it, or
no? Not really. Other than the accent thing and it was not a big one. I thought Andy Serkis did quite a good job.
Gosh, he's funny.
He's a dag, isn't he? Even as a villain, like
he makes a great villain.
He makes a superb villain.
It's just awesome.
I had to put a shout out for Andy Serkis. So yeah, that's what I mean. I've been watching that, and then he's been in a few other things of late, sort of thing.
Well, he's in Burke and Hare that we looked at.
Yes,
as
and
well.
whatever he does, he put on some weight for this film, didn't he?
Did he?
He was enormous.
Was he?
Unless that's all CGI, yeah. Should have seen his forearms. There must have been like a fat suit, only a muscle suit or something. They must have put extra muscles on him because he had really big arms and he had a big frame.
Okay, he didn't look any different, except that he was missing an arm.
He did. He really did. Oh, and one of his arms split in half and turns into a plasma cannon, But, he must have done a lot of work to get that to work. Like weightlifting and stuff like that to get a plasma cannon working on his arm.
I think you're looking into this far too much.
I'm just being mischievous. All right, well, look.
Well, how many stars would you give it?
I'm glad you asked that.
Are you?
I am.
Gosh, we're doing well. We have 1 week off and it all just falls apart.
Look. Yeah, but this is the problem this is why we avoid Marvel films, in that they are very open and shut affairs. They're very slick. They're usually all put together very nicely. There's no strings hanging off them. For example, what's a bad Marvel film? Can you think of one?
Yeah.
Tell me.
I didn't like the second or third Iron Man films.
Yes, that's fair.
And the second Thor film wasn't that good
Actually,
either.
have you gone back and looked at the second Iron Man film? It's not as bad as you think it was.
Well, it has been a while since I've watched it.
Yes.
So maybe I should go back, but I will go back and...
The second Thor, Into the Darkness or whatever it was, that was a bit over the top as well.
I thought that was a bit hardcore, which is why I really enjoyed Thor Ragnarok, because it's such a difference.
Yes, he decided to change.
Oh, that one was a bit dark and... Let's go and do something a bit different. But that's okay, because sometimes it's nice to have a film where you know what to expect. You know you're going to root for the hero and all that sort of stuff. And, yeah, so... that's okay to like those films, Paul.
Yep. Well, I'm glad you're rooting for the hero. I would give it 6.5.
Okay.
Yep.
I would give it 8, but that's because I like a nice superhero film.
Yeah.
And I think it was done really well, and I had no qualms with any of the characters or anything.
Very few of the Marvel films. Now, you know, I like Marvel. I'm not a person who goes after Marvel, but I find them a little bit too slick. They don't have any warts on them. If you take my meaning, you don't come away from. They're popcorn films. You don't come away from them at the end of it and have any real meaning. Ragnarok is different, and the last one was quite weighty in some of the stuff it addressed. Like,
which one?
Oh, when everybody turned to dust and half the population disappeared, because there was a philosophical kind of.
You could understand why the villain did it.
Yes, and you had to have a think about it, and it made you. You know what I mean? There was a philosophical end game to that sort of thing. Sorry to use the pun for the next movie, but like you could agree with him or disagree with him. You know, there was a bit of ambiguity in it, whereas there's none of that in Black Panther, and it's just to open and shut.
You understand where the villain's coming from, as always, because that makes them more three-dimensional. But
he's villainous.
Yes.
Whereas Thanos isn't.
He's a good villain in the fact that you can actually go, you see where he's coming from.
Bad hero. But you know what I mean? Like when you have films like, okay, let's put superheroes to one side and just go off and have a look at Darkest Hour, which is a political film, okay? The Darkest Hour with Churchill. You know, the ambiguity of the character inherently, you can take up opposite views of what what he was about, and so it gives you something to think about. Whereas with superheroes, they're cartoonishly simple in that they're just there to save mankind, and you know what I mean?
Oh, they still go on their arc.
They don't go shopping. You know, they don't have to deal with they don't have to deal with an ex-wife. They've got none of that shit hanging off them. They're just these cartoons that are able to go launching.
No. They still have to, a decent hero still has to go through the arc, which is why don't get me wrong.
That's why I like Captain America, because he's not that.
He does not.
He's not that.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
Captain America's.
He's got issues.
I think he's great. No, he doesn't.
He does. He's massively displaced and distrustful of love.
No.
He lost his only love.
Yes.
And it was non-reciprocal in that he never got a chance to, go home to fourth base.
Have you been watching Civil War?
Does he get it on? Who with?
He kisses her...
Black Panther?
No. Now you're just being enough. You're just being silly. I have nothing against Captain America. I think it's very important for when all the Avengers are together, but I don't like him as a separate hero in the fact that he doesn't have to... You never see a dark side or him going, questioning this or that or whatever. Yep. Or at least with the other superheroes you do. And with Black Panther you do, because he goes, I just want to follow my father, and my father must have been right. And
so he's got daddy issues.
Well, his dad did the wrong thing, and he's like, oh my gosh, but this is the man I looked up to. And
yes, and I'm sorry, but how old is Black Panther? He's got to be 30 plus.
You know what? If you love your dad and you've always looked up to your dad and you always wanted to be the king like your dad...
You've got to reconcile what kind of man he was compared to what kind of affection you had towards him and how you justify that affection.
I think you've been listening to too much popcorn psychology and Capes on the Couch.
It's entirely possible.
You haven't asked me what star rating I would give it.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm building up, Pip. Can't you see what I'm doing here?
No.
We also had another 5 minutes to fill.
I'm sure we would have ratted on the other two.
You were like asking me the question, because that's what I mean. There's not a lot to talk about with this.
No, you've said that about films we really love too.
Well, yeah,
and you love these films, but like you said, you don't have to go and think deep about them.
But they're just fastballs that go straight through to the mitt. You know what I mean?
There's nothing wrong with that. It's nice to mix it up.
Sure, but
if you only watch movies that are deep and dark and make you think, you'd have a headache.
Pip.
Yes.
What's your rating?
8.
I did ask you what your rating was.
I know. I just wanted to repeat it.
Oh. You're such a narcissist sometimes.
And you're going to go back and listen to this and go, hang on.
No, I'm just going to cut the first one. You know what? I might even cut the second one as well.
With the evil laugh.
Clearly your opinion is not really relevant here.
Because you didn't listen to it. That's why I made you ask me again.
I never listened to your opinion. I thought you knew that.
Do you know, if I can get you to do it a third time, then we're really... Give me a minute.
You thoroughly misunderstand me sometimes, woman, honestly. All right, well...
So 6... Did you say 6.5? 6.5 stars from Paul.
Yep.
And 8 stars from me for Black Panther.
Yep. Would you recommend it?
Yes.
Yes, so would I.
I don't think it should have beaten Green Book in Best Film.
Not in the same universe.
No, they're not the same thing.
No.
But it's still a good film.
Still a good film.
It's a nice, easy watch.
And I'm scoring off Green Book now, so with these, I compare them to Green Book.
Which is what I'm doing, yes.
Yes, and look, to be fair, that's what Bohemian Rhapsody got underneath Black Klansman, because against the likes of Green Book, it would have only been... I gave it a 9, but that was because I was still in my rapture of how much I enjoyed it sort of thing at the time sort of thing. But as a film, I'd be flat out giving it an 8 up against Green Book.
Oh, in comparison. I don't know.
I'm very happy with the 10 that I gave Green Book because, I think it thoroughly deserves it.
Cool. Alrighty.
Next film.
So next film is The Favourite.
Pip, could I please have a synopsis?
It is early 18th century and England is at war with France. Queen Anne is sovereign, whilst her closest friend, Lady Sarah, is governing and making the decisions for Anne due to physical and mental ills. Abigail, a lady on hard times and cousin of Lady Sarah, arrives and sees her chance to be the Queen's new favourite.
Now, can I just talk about the music for a second? Before we start anywhere else, let's just get it out of the road.
Knock yourself out.
Do you know what I think of this music?
Oh, I think you think it's wonderful.
I have saved this as a part of my playlist now for my own personal music.
Well, it's a lot of Bach.
A lot of Bach. Purcell.
Purcell, yes.
Yep. It's smack dab right in the middle of the Baroque period.
Well, it was the end of just the end of the Stuart time.
This is my musical G-spot.
So you would have been sitting there going, ooh.
I was thoroughly enjoying this.
But a lot of the music...
added so much to this music, the movie.
But a lot of the music during certain times was just the pluck of a string and then the scrape of a string. So I was going, bing,
yes. It was, yes, it
bing,
was just the pluck on the violin or perhaps a viola and a cello scrape.
But it's right. It was just kept going through that.
Yep.
And it would go like that for minutes.
Yeah. Could you imagine being the person who has to record that?
Hours of just going, pluck.
I don't think we got minute 3 right. Let's do it again. It's fucking 8:30
do you think they would just record 2 and then just put it on repeat?
Yeah. Yeah, look, I really enjoyed it. At first, I wasn't entirely sure that it was actually musical instruments because it was so minimalist. And I'm listening and I thought, is it a viola or is it viola?
Oh, no, I could tell, but I just went, it was really interesting decision to make. Yeah. But they only did it in certain points.
Metronome. It was just ticking, like marking time all the way through the film. Pip.
Yeah, happy you got all your music. I'm
de-chested now. What do you think of the film?
It's funny because when I first started watching it, I was thinking, oh gosh, it's going to be one of those painful films where because you're seeing Lady Abigail, suffering, and you feel bad for Queen Anne as well, and you're thinking, oh, where's this going? How is this working? And also you realise it's not a traditional early 18th century film where they're not using traditional language; they're using like today's language and a lot of today's slang. And at first you think, oh, that's kind of clashing slightly. But then you start to go, oh, wow.
They've just made it accessible.
So that, they've really, it's that time period, those people are suffering and wearing that garb, and that's what's happening, but it's in the language used today.